show you what's changed in their pen since the last time you saw them. Thanks for joining us. And if you're curious about where Chicken We Eat comes from, it's a great video, and checking back in with us, this is a great channel for you to check in at. We raise Cornish wrap cross meat chickens to produce poultry. This is day 13, means they're about 13 days old, and they will be raised for approximately 42 days, and then they'll be butchered and processed into poultry. So try to get kind of a view of most of their space there. So we've actually expanded the amount of space they have just in the last 3 days. This is Monday, August 4th, 2025. And we gave them extra space either Friday or Saturday. And then I gave them more space again this morning. So as we're looking at this view where the baby feeder trays start, we added that amount of width, the whole length of their chicken run there, just this morning. And being 13 days old, they're about a third of the way through production. We also have changed the feeders out. So these baby bird feeder trays is what we have been using, and we took them out of the chicken pen on day 12, and we swapped in these big capacity feeders. So there are actually 6 of those big feeders in the pen now. And then definitely during this week, we will change these little waterers out for much larger capacity waterers. So we're gradually, as they go from the start phase and into the grow phase, things gradually adjust for them. We gradually adjust from calling it a brooder space to calling it a grower space. And as we do that, you see it change. You see the amount of floor space change. So we increase the size of the floor space that the birds have. And you see the supplies that the birds have change. You already see the change in the feeders, and pretty soon we're going to see a change in the waters. And then this floor space actually will give them probably the next couple of weeks to grow into, and then we'll decide. We could give them more space, but they really could actually finish in this space. We'll see what our weather conditions do. If it gets real hot and it's hotter than their optimum comfort, we could give them more room just to thin out the stocking density. Keeping the amount of birds the same, but giving them more floor space would let them just have more area, so it would make the stocking density less crowded. So that's always a great tactic. If you think your animals are too warm, you can give them a little more room, a little more breathing room, and it creates less body heat concentrated in one space. So we'll just have to see how things go, but they really could finish in this floor space. And as we go into the next 2 weeks here, that's the part of production that we call the grower phase, and we'll refer to this as their grower pen. I expect to be able to use this size floor space throughout the next 2 weeks for them without any issue. We get into the last 2 weeks, so after day 28, that's when we consider them in the finished stage. And at that point, if we think they need more floor space, we'll give it to them. There is actually 223 birds now. So we lost a bird on day 12, and that was most likely to that bird losing its balance, getting flipped over on its back at a time when we weren't in the barn. And birds can't breathe well if they're stuck on their backs. So that's probably what happened to that one. And then we lost another one overnight from day 12 to day 13. We actually found that one face down. So on the one I said probably lost its balance and got on its back and led to that suffocation. We say that is most likely because that bird was found on its back. The one that we lost overnight from day 12 to day 13 was found belly down, face down. I would say probably acute heart failure in that case, most likely. Here's another possibility. It could have been that bird that we found this morning could have tried getting into a group of birds maybe that was already circled up there under the heat lamp, and it could have kind of buried itself under a couple of other birds trying to squeeze in there. Sometimes you'll see that happen in meat chickens. If they perceive that one particular spot looks like it's going to be the most comfortable for the ambient conditions that they want, they will squeeze in under 2 or 3 other birds or under a group of birds that's already in that space and actually put themselves underneath those birds, and then they can't breathe. So again, it would be a suffocation incident, but it would actually be brought on by that bird's own choice of where to position itself. So we don't really know what caused that one's death, but we are down to 223 now. At this point, these big feeders accommodate a lot of birds around them at one time. We'll have to add more feeders in gradually as the birds get larger. Same thing happens with the bigger waters. We'll have to add in waters as we go. We can start with whatever accommodates the size they're at, but then we'll have to add some more. Several days ago, I told y'all I thought we were going to have to add some bedding, but we actually have not had to add any bedding yet. So day 13, we are still on the first bedding that we started this set of chickens out on. So we've been able to fluff the bedding. We've been able to, there's one, see that one going underneath? Sometimes they'll do that in a group that's sitting, and they'll get under there and sit, and then they end up not able to breathe. It seems really counterintuitive that an animal would be that self-destructive unintentionally, but we have seen it happen. So back to the bedding. They're on the original bedding still. We've been able to fluff the bedding and turn some of the bedding over, and they're not producing a super heavy manure load yet. They will get to that point. Also, as we've extended their space, they've been given access to more and more floor space that has unused bedding on it, and floor that has rested for over a month since the last birds were on it. So it's bedding that has a high degree of absorption left in it, and that has helped extend the bedding usage too in this group of birds and in this starter pen going into this grower pen. So we will reach a point where we need to add bedding. It's really been very helpful to overhead costs that we haven't had to put more bedding down at this juncture. We're able to just keep them on the bedding that we started with, and it's dry and it's clean and it's doing the job and it's absorbent. So we do have some bedding on hand for when we do need it, but it's been nice that we've been able to really get a maximum usage out of this bedding that is on the floor space for them. But this is great to see these birds spread out throughout the floor space. They're content, they're comfortable. Some of them are resting, a lot of them are active. They're going to food and water at liberty. They're interacting with each other, and they're getting up, walking around, and we see a lot of good strength in this flock. So just really, really pleased with where we're at. And as far as temperatures, these birds right now really prefer ambient temperature of about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're at about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's just almost perfect weather for them. The next week here where we're at in Southeast Ohio does look like temperatures are going to be about 85 degrees Fahrenheit, holding right there at that mid 80s. So that's going to be okay for them. but they're actually on a trajectory where they want it 5 degrees cooler each week. So today, 82 to 85 degrees is perfect. In a week, they're really going to want it more like 80. So at that point, 85 is going to be a little warm. But we actually are running a couple of fans now. That just keeps that air moving, and it augments the natural air exchange that our building already facilitates. So if it gets to a point where it's warmer than the birds want to be, then we can add more fans, and we can add ice packs that we make out of old plastic bottles and water. We just make them right in our freezer, and you actually can set that around the pen, and it makes cooling stations for the birds. We also can put it in the bigger water dispensers that we use. That keeps the water palatable to them. And sometimes we've created primitive air conditioning in our chicken pens. We've taken like fans like these and we have them running, and we'll just set a large ice block down in front of it. We make those with either 2-liter bottles or gallon jugs, and we put water in them part of the way and freeze them. And if we take those frozen jugs and set in front of the fan, it's like a primitive air conditioning. It has that cool air emanating off of that jug, and then that fan just blows that cool air into the pen. So we can position more fans around the pen on all different sides if we want to. We are still using the heat lamps overnight, and probably will continue to be using them overnight at least through the grower phase for the next couple weeks, because our nighttime temperatures are getting down to high 50s and low 60s for sure for the next week or so. They're going to appreciate a little bit of warmth overnight, but we will probably reach a point by the finish stage where, even though temperatures will probably be dipping into the low 60s, high 50s at night, we probably won't need to continue using the heat lamps at the very end of production in those finished weeks. So we should get to a point where we don't use any heat lamps, but we probably will use fans throughout the rest of production for this flock, because when we get out to the end, they're going to want it to be about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and if we're still at about 80, 85, that's going to be warmer than they want it to be. And hopefully it won't be any warmer than that. I think if I have my dates right, this flock is ending around Labor Day, and I can remember a lot of Labor Day holidays here in Southeast Ohio where it was super hot, temperatures real feel getting close to 100. We really hope to not see that with this flock at the end of production. If it's 80, even 85 degrees Fahrenheit, we're hopeful that that's as hot as they'll have to cope with at the end. And it'd be even better if it just doesn't get that hot about the beginning of September. So we'll have to see what comes our way and adjust for it. But they're doing great. We're making chicken, and Cornish rock cross meat chickens are the #1 way to do that. You can have them start grown and finished for poultry in a matter of 6 weeks time. Check back in. Join us another time here at Twin Oaks Family Farm. God bless y'all.